All right, man, peace. So, brothers, first off, let me apologize for the delay in the creation of this Super Bowl aftermath video. Also, let me congratulate the New England Patriots for another outstanding Super Bowl performance. I call it outstanding not because of the entertainment value of the game, but because, like all great champions, they did what they had to do to win. And like all outstanding champions, they can win in a multitude of ways. For anyone who happened to catch my Super Bowl preview video, I stated that I believed that the New England Patriots would be defeated by the Los Angeles Rams. I believe I said the score was 31-24 or would be 31-24 or 31-27, something along those lines. There was nowhere in the world that I thought that we would witness the greatest defensive grudge match in the history of Super Bowls. Not with two of the top 4 or 5 offenses in the NFL. But once again, that is why Bill Belichick is who he is. He truly is a great wizard, and I mean that in more ways than one. He's certainly an MK handler, probably a programmer as well, but he's also a football mastermind. There's no doubt in my mind about that. McVay is another MK handler, but he's not quite on the level. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I will start with you, Stephen A. Were the Patriots impressive or the Rams disappointing?
Well, let me say this before Stephen A. Smith answers. The Patriots were very impressive. The reason why I state that is because, once again, all great champions are going to have to show that they can win in a multitude of ways. If you can only win one way and you're not multifaceted, eventually you're going to run into someone who's going to defeat you because they're going to understand what you want to do, what you need to do to win. Prior to the game, I stated that the Rams needed to make sure that they ran the football properly. Meaning what? That they made a concerted attempt to utilize both Todd Gurley as well as C.J. Anderson. McVay did not do that. He did not do that. And that's not an excuse. That's a reason. There's a reason why certain teams lose in the big spot. And that's because they forget how they got there, and they forget what the recipe is, what the formula is for success. And we'll oftentimes see this with great offensive coaches. They get caught up in the passing game. And I stated that that could be a possible issue for Sean McVay, just like it oftentimes is for Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Bill Belichick very rarely, if ever, forgets how to win. He knows how to win. He also knows how to adapt. He knows what he's looking at out there on the football field, and he's willing to beat you 35-28. He's also willing to beat you 6-3.
Well, I'm not going to take anything away from the New England Patriots because their defense was absolutely sensational, but I'll leave that to Max Kellerman to talk about. My focus is going to be on the Los Angeles Rams because I think that when I peel away, what transpired in the Super Bowl, I got to look at the Los Angeles Rams and what they didn't do. Of course, you look at the New England Patriots and they had something to do with it. We get that. But this was the second leading offense in the National Football League. This is one of the top 7 offenses or top 11 offenses of all time, averaging nearly 33 points per game, yet they end up being held to almost 30 points less, or about 30 points less than what they averaged on the season.
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, we've seen that before. We saw that in Super Bowl 25 when the New York Giants, led by Bill Parcells, with Bill Belichick at defensive coordinator, were able to severely slow down the vaunted Buffalo Bills K-gun offense. We've seen that in Super Bowls before. I mean, hell, the first time that the Patriots won the Super Bowl, they were able to slow down the St. Louis Rams at that time, their superior offense known as the greatest show on turf. So these things happen in Super Bowl games. Hell, the Seattle Seahawks, they shut down that great Denver Broncos offense back in 2013. So you have to be able to adapt. I'm not so much looking at what the Los Angeles Rams were able to do on offense in the regular season. I'm looking at crucial moments here and there where they could have won the game 13-6 or 13-10 or 17-13. That's how we have to analyze this game. Whenever you have grudge matches like this, it comes down to the coaches and who's less nervous. Was Jared Goff ready for this performance? No, he was not. He played poorly. He was not as terrible as people make him out to be, but he did play poorly. And Sean McVay should have done a better job to assist his quarterback early on when I predicted that he would come out jittery. Have him throw some screen passes. Have him throw some short passes to the tight end. Every pass does not have to be 20 yards down the field. If he incompletes those type of passes the first 2 or 3 drives, he's going to lose more and more confidence. So I blame McVay mostly. I don't blame Goff as much, even though if I were to give him a letter grade, I would give him a D.
Now, we can point to the greatness of Bill Belichick all day, every day, and nobody's going to be wrong. But let's talk about Sean McVay here and how conservative he was. How many times do you have to run the ball on first down, for crying out loud?
Actually, Stephen A. Smith, they didn't run the football enough. Todd Gurley only had 10 carries. So I'm not quite sure what game you were watching. I think that if you want to criticize McVay for being too conservative, possibly he could have gotten his quarterback, once again, he could have gotten his quarterback more confidence by having him throw short passes early in the game, maybe even on first down.
That was a problem. How in God's name do you only get the ball to Todd Gurley 10 times? That's a problem. We're looking at a guy like Brandon Cooks who dropped the touchdown pass. I'm not going to hold the other one against him when the ball was floated to him late when he was wide open and Goff had him. But ultimately, I think it was McCourty who came over there at the last minute and swiped at the right arm to force the drop. But there was a touchdown, and before the interception with over 4 minutes left in regulation and left in the game, actually, and before Jared Goff threw that interception, Brandon Cooks had a touchdown that was right in his hands, and he dropped it.
Sure did.
That was problematic. And then you got to...
No, that was not problematic. That was catastrophic.
You got to take into account Jared Goff, who was absolutely flustered. Yes, New England played zone as opposed to man-to-man like they had been doing all throughout the regular season. Yes, they emulated what the Chicago Bears did to the Los Angeles Rams early in the season when the Bears were able to hold the Rams to 6 points, which was 17 points below the Rams had scored throughout the entire season.
And McVay should have saw that coming. What he should have done was intensely studied their loss to the Chicago Bears and planned against an attack like that defensively. Because he had to have known that Belichick as well as Brian Flores would have been using that game film as their number one basis or their number one blueprint to attack the Rams offense in this game. And he did a very poor job of doing that.
Up to that point. But you are Sean McVay. You come into the Super Bowl. You know you're going up against a defensive mastermind in Bill Belichick, who had proven himself time and time again throughout his illustrious career. 5 rings at the time, 2 more as a defensive coordinator, 7 total. You know what he's going to bring to the table with 2 weeks to prepare. And even though he went against what was norm, you've got to anticipate that. This is the boy genius Sean McVay, who I still think is a phenomenal coach and a very, very likable guy. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on him beyond last night in any way.
And Todd Gurley, man, like, dude, are you able to find the holes? Like, you're just running into your own offensive linemen, running into defensive linemen. I'm going to be very interested to see how Todd Gurley plays next season, because running backs can just lose it. I've seen it before, where running backs, they're killing teams for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden they can't find the hole anymore. So I will be very interested to see how Todd Gurley bounces back from this.
But he was very conservative. His quarterback looked absolutely petrified and befuddled throughout the game. Woods and others, for the most part, not Brandon Cooks, who still had about 120 receiving yards, even though he dropped the touchdown pass. But outside of him, you could put an APB out on anybody else in their passing game. You don't get the ball to Todd Gurley, okay? And when you look at just the totality of all of those things, Sean McVay was absolutely right. He got out-coached. The players were a bit confused as a result. They got a bit thwarted and just discombobulated. And we saw what the results are. The New England Patriots are Super Bowl champions.
We'll see what happens with the Rams next season, because they still are a very precocious team. They're way ahead of schedule if we look at their age range. Well, you know what? It's difficult for me to say that they're way ahead of schedule because they brought in so many vaunted veterans. So let's see what happens depending on who they're able to re-sign and bring back next year. They do have a core group that's very young, but they also had a lot of experienced veterans that were on their team. They had Aqib Talib. They had Ndamukong Suh. So let's see what happens.
Were the Patriots more impressive or the Rams more disappointing? You just said it. Sean McVay got out-coached. It's not because Sean McVay is a bad coach. Sean McVay is an excellent coach, although punting from the Patriots 42 is insane in that game. He is way too conservative under those circumstances, oftentimes not as daring as people think, although he's innovative.
Well, you could also say that he was showing confidence in his defense and a lack of confidence in his offense. I think that Sean McVay felt like on 4th down, if we don't convert this 4th down at the Patriots' 42-yard line, I'm going to look very bad here, and it's going to embarrass Jared Goff. I think that the reason why the Rams have been so successful is that Sean McVay has been able to accurately assess the psychological framework of Jared Goff. That being that he's somebody who's jittery, he can become a basket case, and he needs somebody who's going to constantly coach him through and coax him through tough situations. Well, what happens when Sean McVay also reaches a conundrum, when he also gets flummoxed? Now what does Jared Goff do? Because Jared Goff, proverbially speaking, still has his mouth around Sean McVay's titties. He's still sucking his milk from off Sean McVay. He's not ready to lead yet. So if Sean McVay is confused, the whole team is going to fall.
But who did he get out-coached by? If Sean McVay was a bad coach, you could say the Rams are more disappointing. Sean McVay coached a good game by and large. He was out-coached by the greatest coach in the history of American team sports by so far. It is ridiculous to mention anyone else in the conversation. And
as usual, Max Kellerman trying to make waves by using an extreme amount of hyperbole, unnecessary hyperbole. If you want to believe that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in football history or even American team sports history, you have that right. But when you start to make statements like light years ahead of and by such a wide margin, you're really dismissing and disrespecting the legacy of coaches who laid the groundwork for what Bill Belichick has done, and he'll tell you that himself. Coaches like Paul Brown and Bill Walsh and Vince Lombardi, George Halas, Bill Parcells, so on and so forth. What Bill Belichick has been able to do is take the blueprint that they laid out and put his own little wrinkle in there and be fortunate enough to have a quarterback like Tom Brady who fits in as perfectly with him as Tim Duncan did with Greg Popovich. That's what he's very fortunate to have.
That's why the Patriots were more impressive than the Rams were disappointing. The Patriots, guys, we know what it was this whole season. Tom Brady dead last against the blitz among starting quarterbacks all season. The defense looked slow, certainly the first half of the year. Like, where's the outside receiver that makes you go, oh my God, what are we gonna do? This Patriots team has got better throughout the year and saved their most clutch performance. Yes, it was on the defensive side, but that counts for the Super Bowl. Like, they beat the Chargers.
I wouldn't necessarily even call their performance in the Super Bowl clutch. I would just call it experienced. As I watched that game, it reminded me of a lot of fights that I would see late in Muhammad Ali's career or late in Floyd Mayweather's career, where they would just beat another fighter off of experience or guile. They did not have the athletic ability that they once had when they were younger, but they still had guile. And of course, in the case of Floyd Mayweather, he still had his great conditioning and his great fitness. That's how that game looked to me. It looked like an old master fighting the young upstart.
And then went on the road and beat the Kansas City Chiefs and then beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. Listen, this is one of the highest scoring years in the history of the NFL, and they were playing one of the highest scoring teams, like one of the 3 or 4 best offenses all season, and oftentimes the best offense during the season, and held them to 3 points.
That's because the Patriots never get in their own way. What the Patriots do, and it's 60% of winning, they never get in their own way, and they allow you to get in your own way. And then after that, then they go about capitalizing on your mistakes.
2-3 points. This is the same Rams team, by the way, that just hung. Look, it wasn't the biggest offensive outburst ever. They got some help from the refs late in the game, but went on the road and put 26 points on the Saints defense.
And let me say this, because, you know, around this time, championship season in the major sports, there are always these guys running into the comment section talking about this is rigged, that's rigged. I've mentioned this, or I've touched on this sentiment in other videos, but, you know, every year I get new people who come on my channel and they try to broach the same subjects over and over again with their two-dimensional thought process. The NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, whatever you want to call it, whatever major sport you're speaking about, is entertainment. So they come into every season with an overall narrative, and they have different branches that they would not mind seeing come to fruition. You have certain teams who can overcome that narrative or that quote-unquote script per se if they're proficient enough and they execute well enough. It was very obvious watching the Super Bowl that the Patriots were the team that they wanted to win according to the narrative. But the Rams could have controverted that had they executed better. I knew that the Patriots were the team that were already in that preconditioned synopsis to win the Super Bowl, When the Rams gave the football to Todd Gurley, he gashed through one of the holes in the left side of the offensive line for 13 yards, and they called it back for a hold that never happened. When that play occurred, I said the Rams are going to have to execute at an ethereal level in order for them to win this game, and they were unable to do so. So that's why things happen how they happen. You know, I get these guys that will say, you know, if you look at your football ticket or your basketball ticket, it's just for entertainment purposes only. No shit. You must have been the last person to find out that professional sports is for entertainment. When you go to the movies are for entertainment. Do you sit in the movie theater and think that that's real, what's occurring on the screen? When you watch a major sporting event, they have a narrative that they would like to see come to fruition for the betterment of their league and for the viewer. It's like when you watch the film The Hunger Games. If you ever watched the film The Hunger Games, the participants in that game are trying to survive. There are conditions set up in the game where they want certain people to win and the rest to die. If you're able to succeed because of your proficiency at the game, then they bring you back for another round. That's how things are in the sports world. In the history of the sports world, you've had certain teams like the Bad Boy Pistons or the Clutch City Houston Rockets who were able to win championships. The NBA did not want them to win. The Bad Boy Pistons, they were not supposed to have won those two championships. They actually wanted Jordan to have been winning by 89 and 90. But the Pistons were so good that they pushed Jordan off or held him off for a couple of seasons. In 1994, the league wanted the Knicks to win while they gave the Orlando Magic time to incubate. In 95, they wanted it to be the Orlando Magic. Both years, the Rockets were able to win. That's how it works. It's not like it's a ballerina recital where everybody knows what everybody else is going to do out there on stage. But there are strategically planted assets, whether it's in the coaching field or the official or certain players who are meant to assist that script. They're known as monarch athletes or MK handler coaches. But if a team is so good, so proficient that they're able to overcome the narrative, then they win. That's how it goes. And of course, numerology is relevant. It always is. But that's a deeper topic for another day. But a lot of these guys, they watch a 5-minute video and they act like they're going to give you some breakdown about gematria and don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's very annoying and it's very obnoxious.
The Saints defense, by the way, it's true, a lot of the year looked way better than the Patriots defense. The Saints defense, of all the high-scoring teams, they were the team stopping the run during the regular season. Rams still in less than their best performance, without obviously a totally healthy Todd Gurley, put 26 points up on the Saints. Put 3 up on the Patriots. Is that just because the Rams forgot how to play football? No. It's because Bill Belichick designed a game plan that kept one of the highest scoring, most powerful offenses really the league has ever seen. If you take like how many other offenses were like the Rams throughout the history of the league this year. I wouldn't.
Not quite. The Rams are not the greatest offense of all time. You also have to factor in the era that they're playing in, where the NFL has de-emphasized defense. When I think about the best offenses that I've ever seen, the 1989 49ers, the 1990 Buffalo Bills, the 1998, I believe it was, Minnesota Vikings, the 2007 Patriots, those are probably the best offenses that I've ever seen. Also the 2013 Broncos. Those teams are the best offenses that I can remember offhand. When I think of this Rams team, they were very good. Were they confused by Bill Belichick and Brian Flores' defensive game plan? Absolutely. But they also froze under the spotlight. There's no doubt about that. There was a deer in headlights phenomenon that occurred in the Super Bowl that night.
I wouldn't say they were in the uppermost tier, but they were one of the better offenses you're going to see to 3 points when it mattered most. That's Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Well, you just have to tip your cap.
Well, listen, I can tip my cap to them, but I'd be damned if I'm going to absolve the Los Angeles Rams from what we witnessed. Max Kellerman, this is not a team that scored 16 points. This is not a team that scored 13 points or something like that. They scored 3 points for the entire game. We just finished watching the Super Bowl last year where the New England Patriots lost to a Philadelphia Eagles team with a backup quarterback that dropped 41 on them. We've seen times in the past when the New England Patriots have lost Super Bowl to your New York Giants, giving up 17 points or 21 points. We get that. So
Stephen A. also recognized the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line was playing about as well as any offensive line had played in recent NFL history heading into that game. Nick Foles was also in one of the great rhythms of any quarterback in the history of the NFL in the playoffs. And he was also a veteran quarterback who was very much at ease and relaxed. Also remember that the Patriots came into that game and at the last minute, their head coach let them know that their starting cornerback, who was viewed as the best corner on the team, was not going to be allowed to play. So there were a lot of factors that were part and parcel to the reason why the Patriots did not perform as well defensively last year. And also we have to give the Eagles credit. They just came to play and they were the better team.
So in other words, nobody's trying to take anything away from the greatness of Bill Belichick. But we've seen the greatness of Bill Belichick where we sat here and lauded and praised the greatness of Bill Belichick even when he's given up 17 or 21 points. When you have a high-powered offense with the requisite weapons that the Los Angeles Rams have available to them, even without Cooper Kupp, when you're led by a Todd Gurley, when you've got a Jared Goff who can throw the football, when you've got decent and respectable wideouts, and you score 3 points, even though I'm not taking anything away from the
I gotta interrupt you for a second. Because they didn't have Gurley.
They didn't have Gurley, not really.
And I don't understand the deal with that situation.
Molly Karen, Max Kellerman, you guys are saying that the Rams did not have Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was at the game. He just did not perform as well as you would have liked him to perform. According to you, Todd Gurley was not there because he had 10 carries for 35 yards. He could have been fully healthy and just not played well. Now, who knows? In the aftermath of all of this, now we're finding out that Todd Gurley was not available for the postseason interview or the last interview of the season. He pretty much just came and left. Jared Goff is still blaming himself for the loss, and I think that that's part of the culture of the team. I'm not quite sure if Todd Gurley is actually hiding an injury or if, in fact, the coach just lost confidence in him for another reason. Either way, these are things that he's going to have to live with for the remainder of his life, really, and also for this offseason. Hopefully, he's not going to be one of those running backs who just disappears off the face of the earth because, once again, that does happen to running backs sometimes. You've had great running backs who had a great start and then fell off and then even bounced back. For those of you brothers that go back far enough, you will remember the great Marshall Faulk was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, I believe in 94 or 95. Had a great rookie season, a decent second year, and then kind of fell off a little bit. Peyton Manning came onto the team, and Marshall Faulk was there to assist him and basically act as a guide. And, he was just like the dump-off running back. Peyton Manning would throw him the football whenever he was scared to throw the football down the field. And Faulk kind of had a great comeback season there. And then he went to the St. Louis Rams and became arguably the greatest combo running back of all time. So it happens. Who knows what's going on with Todd Gurley right now? But there's something rotten in Denmark with that whole situation.
Why won't people admit that he's injured? He has to be.
Hold on. Last time I checked, I saw Todd Gurley run the football 10 times. As a matter of fact,
and he looked explosive when he got the football, just like he was not finding the right hole.
I saw him scamper for 16 yards, even though it was called back on a penalty. I'm not saying he was 100%.
Right, but he exploded through that hole, though.
Hold on. I'm not saying he was 100%. I'm saying Todd Gurley was good enough. And we saw also C.J. Anderson running the football effectively in the 2 previous playoff games, which we praised. So what I'm saying to you is that if you have a guy like Sean McVay, we got to remember there's a whole bunch of coaches that have been hired because you've got owners looking for the second coming of Sean McVay. I'm saying you anticipate more than 3 points.
Hold on, Stephen A. Hold on.
A high power. Hold on.
We're going to run out of time.
Hold on.
A high-powered offense scored 3 points and just not and absolve the coach.
Right.
I can't do that.
The Rams' offensive line has been performing extremely well all season and then through the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, the Patriots are getting pressure. And meanwhile, you do the reverse. The Rams' front four, especially on defense.
That was another major key that I had for that game that did not come to fruition. The Rams' defensive line did not step up. Aaron Donald did not step up. I kind of had a feeling that would happen because with Aaron Donald being a defensive tackle, it's easier to double team him. And if Fowler did not get pressure on the outside, I could see a game where Brady was not going to be as rushed and as pressured as he needed to be. The history of the playoffs with Tom Brady shows that in order to defeat him or have a chance to beat him, You have to knock him down at least 8 or 9 times in a game. You have to get at least 4 or 5 sacks in that game. When the Giants played against the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, they had that boy's face in the dirt repeatedly. They had him scared for his life. When the Broncos beat him in 2015, they had him scared for his life. The Rams did not do a good enough job of getting to Brady.
They couldn't beat their man against the Patriots offensive line. The line of scrimmage, the Patriots were winning throughout the game, and it's not like the Rams were compromised there. You just have to tip your cap. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Gurley, as Molly points out, was clearly not Gurley. Why is that significant? Yes, he could touch the ball 10 times, but play action, the threat of play action, which is what the entire Rams offense is predicated upon, was really simply not there for them.
Well, I have a problem with that, because play action is supposed to be affected when Gurley has an issue with his hands or with his eyesight. There were no issues with his hands or with his eyesight. So even if you want to say that Gurley has a knee problem or a quad issue, he has to be able to catch the football. In the game a couple of weeks ago against the Saints, certain people made excuses for him. They said, well, he was thinking about his injury. That's why he dropped 2 passes. There's no excuse to drop multiple passes in the NFC Championship game. So there were some nerve issues with Gurley. Right now, he's somebody to be watched.
The same way it had been all year.
The moment was too big for the both of them.
I agree. Thank you, sir.
Well, for Goff, for sure.
I love it.
For both of them. For Goff, for Gurley, and hell, all 3 of them. McVay, too.
Love McVay. Bottom line. The moment was too big for both him and Goff.
I can't argue with
and Gurley.
you with that.
And you're going up against Belichick, so obviously it's a totally different deal. But the thing I find finding this whole season is about about offense, and then the Super Bowl is all defense.
Right, but that's normally how it goes because they call the game differently in the playoffs.
Zero offense.
The lowest scoring Super Bowl in history.
Unbelievable. And we've had so much offense this entire season.
It was not great for the eyes, but once you were watching it, it built up the tension. Like, who's going to score? It really became a matter of whoever scores the touchdown first is probably going to win the game. For example, if the Rams had scored the first touchdown, I would have heavily favored them. Say, had they scored the first touchdown in the fourth quarter, I would have heavily favored them. But I would have given the Patriots a better chance to come back. Once the Patriots scored that first touchdown, I knew the game was over. Because Goff was feeling so much pressure, and the game was tied at 3. Once they got down by 7 points, I knew it was over.
Entire season. All right, guys. Tom.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Once again, congratulations to the Patriots. And we'll see if there's going to be a team next year that can knock them off. Because as of right now, when we look at the AFC landscape, what do we see? We see a Baltimore Ravens team that has a great defense. They have the defense to beat the Patriots, but look at their quarterback. Lamar Jackson can barely throw the football. We look at the San Diego Chargers. We saw what happened to them when they went into Foxborough. They got their doors blown off. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're probably the best hope. Great quarterback, great offense, good personnel on defense. They've recently changed the defensive coordinator, so we'll see what happens with them. The Pittsburgh Steelers are pretty much in shambles. So it would not shock me if the Patriots get back to the Super Bowl again next season. So peace.